Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope everybody's doing well this morning. And the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs are winding down. Only three series remain. Two game sixes on tap tonight. We'll have a game seven tomorrow night with the Minnesota Wild forcing game seven against the Vegas Golden Knights last night. But we're going to dive into a lot of stories. Obviously, earlier in the week, we saw the Edmonton Oilers get swept by the Winnipeg Jets. That was obviously a tough look for the Oilers, and the backlash that has come out. So we'll dive into that, and a bunch of other things, including Spencer Knight's great first start of the playoffs, and then Tampa Bay getting through against their arch rivals last night. I think the best series of the first round, bar none. That includes the series in Canada, which we'll get into. Toronto, Montreal, game five, sorry, tonight. We're also gonna talk about fans being back in the building and the positive and negative, and we've seen some of the negative over the past 48 hours. There was an incident last night in the NBA that was really troubling to me. I'll get into it today. It involved Russell Westbrook, and also with Ethan Bear. Ethan Bear, it was more of an online problem. But both are really bad, and they shouldn't happen. So we're going to dive into that today, talk about all the kind of positive and negative things we've seen from fans, from fan interaction in the world of sports. So we'll start today talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins. Over the past 48 hours, I've heard a lot about, the Edmonton Oilers, Connor McDavid, he can't win. He's not a winner when it comes to the playoffs. And, he's won one playoff series to his credit. And, to looking at him, he's been in the league 6 years. I think we're going to see Austin Matthews get his first playoff series win tonight, but people like to compare them because they're both really good players. And obviously Matthews plays for Toronto, so you're going to hear that narrative a lot. But sometimes it just takes a while to win. Sidney Crosby, when he was drafted, the Pittsburgh Penguins were in a terrible state. But they got Chris Letang, they got Evgeny Malkin, they got Sidney Crosby, they got Marc-Andre Fleury first overall. So, yeah, they were a pit, but by the time Crosby got there, it wasn't a terrible situation. They had Sergei Gonchar on the back end, who may go into the Hall of Fame. So, looking at the Penguins and saying, well, Crosby won when he was young. Yeah, he did. He won in 2009. He went to 2 Stanley Cup finals by the time he had 4 years in the league. But after that, he did not win a Stanley Cup until 2016. That was a long period of time. And they had some really, really good teams. I think you could argue that the Pittsburgh core you could at least say they've underperformed, because in those glory years, they were likely better than they were in 2016, 2017 when they won the Cups. But that's just looking at the narrative of the superstar player, because over the past, over the past couple days, it's been, Crosby, Penguins, they're not that good, and they're not the Islanders last night, they beat the Pittsburgh Penguins. They advanced. They've beaten Pittsburgh 2 of the last 3 years in the playoffs, including a sweep. And I've never heard the argument, Sidney Crosby wasn't good enough, and Evgeny Malkin wasn't good enough, and the superstar players, they got to get you over the hump. Well, why don't we hear that today? Crosby, Malkin, these guys should have been better in this series. I think Crosby played really well the first 3 games of the series. Games 4, 5, and 6, he was MIA. Hitting a post is not scoring a goal. That's basic hockey 101. And for Crosby, how many more years are you going to get a really good look at a cup? Because he hasn't been close since 2017. They lost to Washington in 2018, game 6, double overtime. He hasn't gotten out of the first round since that. Technically, they did not make the playoffs last year because they played Montreal. So that in the play-in. So, take that as with what you want. But To me, they didn't make the playoffs. They kept their streak alive, but I don't think they did. Um, and now looking ahead, where does this team go? Um, Brian Burke and Ron Hextall took over the team midseason, and I I don't see a real strong foundation in their minor league system. Do they have? They do not have a lot of good prospects. They have Jake Gensel, I think, is a really good player. They have Rust, who plays well with Crosby. Who knows if he can be effective by himself? I think that's always a question you ask when you have a player who produces at a high level playing with Sidney Crosby. Chris Kunitz could never do that. Chris Kunitz played well with Crosby. That was it. Dupuis, same thing. But I think Rust is better than those two players. I think Chris Kunitz was a fourth liner for his whole career. I think Brian Rust can be a 15 to 20 goal scorer. But, you know, grand scheme, they traded for Kasperi Kapanen. They have Jason Zucker for another year on term. They still have Chris Letang, but they have Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang for one more season. This offseason, you got to look to trade them, in my opinion, especially Malkin, because his returns are diminishing quickly, and they have been for a period of time. He played okay in these playoffs. He scored a couple goals he when he had to on the power play, but his 5-on-5 play is just not consistent enough. We don't see that same push that we saw before, where he was used to be like Ovechkin. He'd be a physical force down the middle of the ice. He'd win faceoffs. He'd hit you. He'd create turnovers because he was just physically stronger than the opponent. I don't see that Evgeny Malkin anymore. And it's worrisome because he's only getting older. He's only getting slower, and he's an injury-prone player. He missed 24 games this season. It's likely going to keep happening, but for Pittsburgh, they're not going to get a great haul for Evgeny Malkin. But you want to trade a guy. You don't want to lose somebody for nothing, is basically what I'm saying, because when he's up, I don't want to re-sign him from Pittsburgh. And I don't think Brian Burke and Ron Hextall will. It doesn't make any sense. Even if Crosby says, I want Gino back, he's my guy. This is about building a winner. And for Sidney Crosby, if he wants to win another cup before the end of his career, Evgeny Malkin's not the Robin to his Batman. Because he just doesn't. He's 35, 36 years old. And people say, well, Ovechkin looked bad in the playoffs. Okay, fine. He did. But I still think Ovechkin has much higher play consistently than Evgeny Malkin. Ovechkin looked pretty good this season. Malkin, at no point during the regular season, even when he was healthy, looked good. So this offseason, he's got a no move, but I think Malkin would be open to a trade, particularly if it was to a team. Obviously he's not going to accept a trade to Arizona or a team that has no chance of winning. But another interesting angle to this is, would Malkin agree to make himself available in the expansion draft? Who knows? Maybe they can work something out, but that would help Pittsburgh a ton if Seattle would take him. It's not a huge salary. I mean, it's a decent salary, but it's not huge because Malkin, Crosby, Ovechkin, these guys were signing deals, a while ago for term, 12, 13 years. And then it doesn't look so bad because at the $8.7 million right now is not a bad contract. It's a pretty good one. So there's that. And then, I got to give credit to the New York Islanders. This team just finds a way to win. Brock Nelson with 2 goals last night. Yeah, you could say Tristan Jarry sucked, which he did, but they still won the game. I mean, it was a chaotic second period. Pittsburgh goes up 3-2 about 2 minutes into the period. I'm like, okay, this is the third time Pittsburgh's had a 1-goal lead in this game. Did I think they were going to hold it? Hell no. So quickly after, it's 3-3, Brock Nelson. Then Brock Nelson strikes again. He scored the 5th goal to make it 5-3. Ryan Pulock gets a shot from the point off of a Travis Zajac faceoff win. Pajot gives him the puck. He lets it rip, beats Tristan Jarry clean, 4-3. Then I mentioned Brock Nelson makes it 5-3. So they scored 3 goals in about a 4-minute span. You see Mike Sullivan call a timeout, and it was just pandemonium. And that was it. That was the game. I mean, the third period, they got some looks, but Islanders played defensive hockey, and they didn't let Pittsburgh get anything crazy. And Ilya Sorokin, Barry Trotz made the move to replace Semyon Varlamov after Game 3. It worked out. The guy's made four. He's had 4 career starts in the postseason. He's won all 4. Pretty good. And you look at their lineup. Jean-Gabriel Pageau. He was a good player in Ottawa, but they got rid of him. They just said, "Oh, we're moving on." They give him a deal the second they get him. He's a good playoff performer. He is. He's great in Ottawa. He's continued here. Kyle Palmieri scored a goal last night. I don't think he's got much left, but he got 3 goals in the first round, and you wouldn't have won Game 1 without that trade deadline acquisition. So check mark there for Lou Lamoriello. Their defense core: Adam Pelech, Ryan Pulock, Scott Mayfield. Those aren't household names. Andy Green, but they do their job. And there's a guy like Matt Martin. He played for the Maple Leafs. It was as if that Mike Babcock and the media said, this guy can't play hockey anymore. He goes back to where it all started in Long Island. He plays a prominent role. In this series, he went head-to-head with Sidney Crosby. It was a Clutterbuck, Martin, and Cizikas against Sidney Crosby, one of the best players of all time. And who won the matchup? If you ask me, the fourth line of the Islanders won the matchup because who won the series? Brass tacks. Crosby might have scored 3 goals. I think he had 3 goals, 3 assists in the series. Whatever. That means nothing because you lost. If Nathan MacKinnon had 9 points in the first round, but they got swept by St. Louis, those empty calories. Those are nothing. So check mark to Martin and the boys, but it's just these players that you don't expect a lot from, and they find a way to do it in Long Island with Barry Trotz, with Lou Lamoriello. Better coaching, better management than where they previously came from. And, they head into a series with the Boston Bruins. Out of the East, the first and second seeds are out, Washington and Pittsburgh. So that means Boston, as the 3 seed, is going to have home ice advantage. I think their barn is going to be more full. I think Boston announced that, there's going to be more of a crowd in the second round for sure, which is good. You're seeing it across the United States. Be nice if Canada would do that, but we won't get into that today. Save it for the next podcast because I like to vent about that at least once, maybe twice a week. But I think the Islanders are a tougher matchup for Boston. I said this to friends. I said, Boston would beat Pittsburgh handedly, and I believe that wholeheartedly, that it would not be that close because Pittsburgh just isn't that good of a team. Sidney Crosby or not, they have this mystique that the Pittsburgh Penguins are a really good team because they have Sidney Crosby. Well, would people say that the Edmonton Oilers are a really good team? Because guess what? Both teams are out in the first round. So that kind of tells you about what this team is as a whole. They're not that great. So now for the Islanders, I think their checking style, I think obviously they got a better goaltender than Pittsburgh. Tristan Jarry is just a gas can with a huge hole in it. And so you got a defense that's underrated that just eliminates problems. They don't do a lot wrong. Dobson, Green, I mentioned Pelech, Mayfield, Ryan Pulock. They play hard. They play well. And I think you're going to see Martin, Cizikas, Clutterbuck. They just went up against Crosby. I'd be putting them up against the perfection line in Boston. Rough them up. See what you can do. And then Sorokin's obviously had limited playoff experience. Tuukka Rask has a ton of it. But can Pageau continue to play well? Oliver Wahlstrom, can he chip in here and there? Brock Nelson needs to continue to be a force. Josh Bailey, the longest tenured Islander, needs to find the back of the net. So Boston obviously had some great depth in the first one. Craig Smith getting a double OT winner. Taylor Hall looked fantastic. But can you work through that Bruins defense core? Because it's not great. And I think the Islanders can definitely expose it if they work at it throughout this series. So there's just a little second round preview, but I do think that'll make for a better second round than Pittsburgh and Boston. Also last night, we saw Tampa Bay defeat Florida 4-0. They finally get past those pesky Panthers who gave them all they could handle. Tampa wins it in 6 games, 4-0 win last night. And, their clutch players came out to play last night. Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, both had 2 points. Stamkos really put the game on ice when he scored a power play goal with 6:25 remaining in the second period. And also you got the best goalie in the world, Andrei Vasilevsky. You need to win a game. He gets a 29 save shutout. They move on. They await the winner of Carolina-Nashville, who we'll see in Game 6 tonight. But what a rough, tough series, but I think it's a great test for Tampa. They went into it, played a team that just hated them, and you got through it. There's penalties, there was some dirty play, but you come out the other side. Kucherov's healthy. He's gotten back into it. I think he had 8 or 9 points in this series. Fantastic. Stamkos stayed healthy throughout the whole series. There's another check mark. You faced a tough opponent. You got through it. And, this team won a cup last year. They had to beat Columbus. They had a hex over them. They got through Columbus. Florida, they don't have a hex over Florida, but you had to get through a tough opponent. And I think that tells you a lot about this team. They're still Stanley Cup. They're the number one Stanley Cup contender for me. Now, do I think Colorado should win the Stanley Cup? Yeah. But I'm not putting Colorado above Tampa in my power rankings until Tampa has been beaten. And I think the two of them would make for the best Stanley Cup final because I think they are the best team. Does that mean those two will meet in the Stanley Cup final? No, because things can happen. Maybe we see Toronto, Winnipeg get through the North and they face a wounded opponent in Tampa Bay or Colorado. But I just look at Tampa Bay and you get Pat Maroon. It was a big physical forward, but he gets a goal last night in Game 6, a must win. That's the antithesis of this team is that they just have guys that step up when you need them to. And Pat Maroon's a guy like that. He's a big physical guy. He's not known for goal scoring and being high-end talent, but he brings it. And Tyler Johnson, again, he beats out the icing on that play, throws the puck in front. Maroon throws it on net and whacks out in midair into the back of the net. And for Florida, great season. Obviously tough to go out. Spencer Knight, for a rookie to come into the playoffs and to win his first game, played valiantly last night. No skin off his back. He was fantastic. But looking at Florida, so now they got Chris Driedger. He's going to be a UFA. He's out of Florida. I think he's definitely leaving. They don't have the cap to keep him because they'll have Knight likely next year in the NHL. And then you got the $10.5 million hole being goalie Bob, where you have him for another 5 years under contract at that term. And good luck getting somebody to take that contract. But, he pulled 3 different times in the series. And for Joel Quenneville, how do you welcome him back into the locker room where clearly this team does not have a whole lot of confidence in him? And I just worry about his long-term status because Spencer Knight's here. This kid's gonna play, and obviously we don't know him. We've seen him in a small sample size. It's kind of like Cole Caulfield. I think the kid can be a really good hockey player. Maybe Spencer Knight could be Carter Hart next season, and he looks like Jekyll and Hyde, but he looked pretty damn good this year. So if he can be consistent, Bobrovsky might be a $10.5 million backup goaltender. And this is before Quenneville got there and he really kind of settled the organization. But they signed Sergei Bobrovsky in the offseason when they had just drafted Spencer Knight 11th overall. Yes, I know goalies take time to develop, but it made no sense. You're going to pay a goalie $10.5 million of your cap when you have a guy you drafted in the first round, which is rare for a goaltender. So you've got to believe that this guy's special. He's going to be your $10 million goaltender. Why are you giving Bobrovsky this contract? And, they get in this first year, they miss the playoffs. Disaster. This year, they make the playoffs, but Chris Driedger was better than Sergei Bobrovsky all season long. I don't know where this goes, but he'll be back in Florida for sure because who's taking that contract? Nobody. Seattle ain't taking it. I'll tell you that. I don't know. It's a tough look for Florida because I think this team's really on the rise. And maybe they'll take a step back next year because you got Carter Verhaeghe, who had a career year. Hornquist really turned back the clock. Vetrano was good for Florida. Wenberg had a bounce back season, former first round pick. But I think this team has something about it. But we'll see. They still have Keith Yandel, who's got a no trade clause. So probably try to move him, but he's going to be tough to move. I know he likes it in Florida, and he was a healthy scratch the last 3 games of the series. So Florida had a great season, obviously a tough way to go out, and they'll have to reevaluate and look at things this offseason. The final game 6 of the night was Minnesota hosting Vegas in game 6. And I thought it was over Monday. I thought Vegas would move on, face Colorado. We're going to get ready for a second round series that we've all been waiting for. But to Minnesota's credit, they battle. Marcus Foligno puts one in the back of the net. Spurgeon finds the back of the net. And they win 4-2. So I said last night, I looked at the confidence meter. I said the Islanders are definitely moving on. I said I think Florida can win. I thought Florida might win last night. I said, no, Vegas will get through tonight. Just, it's time. Minnesota got a game. They fought back hard. They've had that mentality all year. They'll advance. But to their credit, the stingy Minnesota Wild, they never, ever quit. Under new head coach Dean Evison, this team just has a different mantra about them. They don't have this defeatist mentality where it's the Minnesota Wild. It's a secondhand organization. They just find ways to lose, not find ways to win. And they just brought it last night. And they scoreless after 2. Cam Talbot, Marc-Andre Fleury, both goalies have been fantastic in this series. You can look at offensive players who have been really good. Mark Stone, I think, has had a fantastic series. On the other side, Kaprizov, he hasn't scored a ton, but I think he's been really dynamic. But you got to look at guys like Eriksson Ek, Foligno, who've actually been the best weapons because a highly skilled forward from Minnesota, Kevin Fiala, before last night, had no points in 5 games. Now that changed in the third period. Turnover at the Minnesota blue line, turn it up. Kevin Fiala's got a 2-on-1, throws it across the ice to Hartman. He beats Fleury from a tough angle, 1-0. Then there was a disallowed goal on Vegas for a screenshot. Goal should have counted. But that's goaltender review. That's video review. I mean, who doesn't love it because they never get the call right, but some Jesus Christ. But nevertheless, review that doesn't work, but whatever, that happened. And now they get a power play because there's a coach's challenge, and Fiala scores on the power play. So he gets 2 points in a huge game 6. They add an empty netter, and the Minnesota Wild have forced game 7 back in Vegas tomorrow night. And this is huge. Again, I did not see this coming. Minnesota with Bill Guerin, with Dean Evison, they don't have that same boring play that they used to. They don't have a defeatist mentality where they played the Chicago Blackhawks in the past. The series was over before it started. And I credit Minnesota for implementing this new system as early as they have and for doing it so effectively. So we'll see. We'll see at game 7. It's a game 7. Who knows? Marc-Andre Fleury's played in a ton of them. You can't say Cam Talbot has much game 7 experience. Fleury's won a lot of game 7s, but who can come out and have a better start? That could be a huge part of the game. Minnesota has the momentum. I don't believe in in-game momentum all that much. I think, game 6, Minnesota wins. I don't think that means that they have the edge in game 7. That's just my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see who comes out with the win tomorrow night. But we do get a game 7 because I don't think we're going to see one in the Canadian division. But in the first round anyway, maybe Jets and Leafs in the second round, but we might not even see a game 6 in the Canadian division. Will we see one from Canes Preds? We'll get into that in a minute, but I want to see Vegas, Colorado. I do. So we'll finally get to Canada. Now, I mentioned the Oilers earlier, getting swept, 3 overtime losses, tough look for them. But the series that's been hyped as the big rivalry and the best series in the first round, yeah, it's been a bit of a dud, like somebody might have predicted on a podcast called To the Point. But that's I don't like to toot my own horn. But nevertheless, if you're a Leaf fan, you got to be excited. You're up 3-1. You're on the verge of winning your first playoff series since 2004. And Leafs Montreal tonight back in Toronto. And for the Leafs, your biggest, you're happy for a number of reasons. Obviously, you're up 3-1, but you're seeing depth scoring. You didn't see a lot of that in the past where their second to fourth lines brought you nothing. And we have, I think the depth have been better than the Stars in this series for Toronto, in my opinion. I mean, Bill Nylander's been great. 4 goals in 4 games. He's brought it night in, night out. He's been a really dynamic player. You had Alex Kerfoot, who was basically a footnote in the regular season. I still don't think he's a very good player, but he's had a great series. Alex Galchenyuk. I had to bring this up because I harped on him during the regular season, but he finally deserved praise. The other night he had a great game, great pass to Nylander, nice goal. But I was waiting for this game in the regular season, but he got hyped for doing nothing, for playing hard. You heard the media just say, this guy, Alex Galchenyuk, like this guy's got something about him now. He's a different player. He's so dynamic. He was the other night, and he finally got the media attention he deserved. But now in the regular season, he did nothing and he got it. So it's funny. I had no problem with the media attention last night, but why in the regular season when he had 1 goal in 16 games was he so promoted? He deserved it the other night, but it's just funny. Just thought I'd point that out. But kudos to him. Daryl, Alex Galchenyuk, Sittler had a great game the other night. He looks good. And even Moon missed himself. Joe Thornton added a goal. He's 41. I don't think he's played particularly well in this series, but he's still playing. So kudos to Jason Spezza. He's contributing. He's been great in this series. If you look around the top of their lineup, Marner has been pretty bad, if you ask me. He turning the puck over. He's getting beat in corners. He's trying to do too much. Simple 2-on-1s, and he's holding the puck for 10 minutes. Shoot the puck sometimes. They know you're going to pass, so try to beat Price cheating. But tonight, Game 5 in Toronto. I mean, 4-0 on Tuesday. It really wasn't even a close game. I said it was going to be 4-5-1. I was close. They win 4-0. I think tonight Toronto will win. I'll say 4-1 again. Montreal had their last little hurrah in Game 3 where in the third period Toronto didn't show up. Jack Campbell, they make some timely saves. They outshot Toronto 15-2, but they couldn't beat him. Caulfield was their most dangerous forward, which tells you everything you know about Montreal's scoring depth. And Toronto survived the game to their credit. And that was their one scare. They lose Game 1. And I'm not going to say it's because of John Tavares' injury. I think that's a false narrative that, people would like you to think because, yes, of course it shook them up, but Montreal played them in Game 1 too. Third period, Montreal played better. But the Leafs will advance tonight. They're going to play the Winnipeg Jets. And obviously we'll get into that when we get to the second round series. But I said this would be the matchup in the second round when the season started, so I'm glad that I'm right. I think Winnipeg is the toughest matchup for Toronto. I think a lot of people wrote off Winnipeg in the first round, and I've even heard from the media, McDavid couldn't get through, and it's so bad, and Mike Smith couldn't make. How will give Winnipeg some credit? Like, they won 3 overtime games. That's called clutch. That's called winning when you have to. It's being more clutch than McDavid and Draisaitl. How about get some credit to Paul Stastny, to Nick Ehlers coming off an injury scoring 2 goals? Kyle Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Like, I haven't heard any of that. It's what did Edmonton do wrong? Well, Winnipeg can play too, but I've heard again. You got to give credit where credit's due to this Winnipeg team. Where do I love their defense core? No, hate a lot of it, but I love their forward. I said from the jump, their forward depth can compete with anybody in the NHL, and that includes Toronto. Matthews, whoever. Look at the top: Scheifele, Dubois, Connor, Lowry, Ehlers, Appleton, Kopp. I mean, that third line's better than Daryl and Kerfoot and whoever the hell else they got playing there, Engvall. Uh, to me, that's not a real tough ask, but I look at this team and I think they can give Toronto a run for their money. I think they can beat Toronto in a playoff series. Does that mean they will? No, but I think they can beat Toronto in a playoff series. I think it'll be a tight series, and I don't think it should be super shocking if Winnipeg beats them. That's all I'm saying right now. I'll get into it more in depth when it's confirmed, but Toronto's going to beat Montreal tonight. Montreal, they're done with this series. Carey Price, the only reason it's been close the past couple games, and his save on Spezza, he has no run support. He's got no help, and he was perfect in game one. They only allowed one goal. They win. Other than that, you allow more than one, you're screwed in this series if you're Montreal. So Game 6 tonight from Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, but I suspect that we will not be heading back to Montreal on the weekend. So we'll wait and see. Also, Game 6 tonight, we got Carolina at Nashville. It's been a wild series where Carolina takes the first two games. Looked pretty decisive that they were going to be the team that would advance, the team to beat. I think they've been a dominant team all year. But games 3 and 4 in Nashville wins 2 games in double overtime where Matt Duchene and Luke Cunnin were the heroes. Then we got to Tuesday night, and I'm like, Nashville's going to win this game. It's late in the third. It's 2-1. But Martin Neckash finds the back of the net, ties it at 2. We get into overtime. About 4 minutes into overtime, Jordan Staal scores the game winner. Carolina wins 3-2. And credit to Jordan Staal. 4 goals in the first round, turning back the clock. He had a great year. Looks a lot better than his brother right now does in Montreal. He looks cooked. But he's a leader of that team. He's been a big goal scorer all year. And also a guy I love. First, I really started seeing him at the World Juniors, Martin Neckash for the Czech Republic. This guy is a star in the game. He's really good. Svechnikov, Aho. But I think the Preds are going to win tonight. I think they're going to force Game 7 back in Raleigh. It's tough to win in Nashville. There's that crowd. Last change, of course, but it's just something about Nashville where they still have that playoff success. That crowd believes that they're going to win every time they're in that building. And, UC Saros has been fantastic in this series. He's a goalie that's small in stature, but he's made some big saves. He's been a big game player for Nashville for a long time now. And they've got contributions. They don't have high-end talent. They don't have an elite player, I would say, on the roster. Yossi, of course, their decor. Ellis, Ekholm, but good goaltending, timely goals from guys like Luke Cunnin. And who knows? I think they get through. I think they force a Game 7 Saturday. But it's great to see the crowd in Nashville, in Carolina. They've been loud. They've been, raucous so far. And even last night at I didn't listen to the sound, but I read on Twitter and just hearing. I know what it's like listening to games in Nassau. I'm sure it was loud last night in Long Island because those fans are passionate. They love their Islanders, and we'll see. But I'm excited to see the crowd tonight. See what Nashville's got left in the tank. That's a lot of hockey for both teams. And obviously, if Carolina wins, they will play the Tampa Bay Lightning in the second round. And that's no easy task there. Obviously, defending Stanley Cup champions. But you got Rob Brendamore. You got that nucleus of a team all year. They've beaten Tampa all year, pretty much. So can they keep that going? But now I think we're going to see a Game 7. I think we'll see 2 Game 7s in the first round with obviously Minnesota Vegas, and I think we'll see Carolina Nashville Game 7 as well. So it'd be interesting what they do with the schedule because there'll be one game tomorrow. But if say Nashville forces game 7 tonight, forces game 7, that'll be Saturday. I wouldn't be shocked to see, Islanders Bruins game 1 that day, or even maybe they'll put Toronto Winnipeg game 1 because they'll want to start the second round as early as they can, because there's only so much time left in the year before you get to the Olympics, television contracts, things like that. So second round right around the corner, and we'll be all over it here and to the point. But interesting first round for sure, and it's not over yet, but the games are winding down. I think first round's always the best one, if you ask me, because there's 8 series. 8. You get multiple games at once. You got to flip back and forth. You got to get the computer. You got to get the TV. And last night, you get games going. You get NBA action last night. So it's hard to track everything, but I'm trying my best to do it at the same time, working and trying to have a life, but that's never really been a key emphasis of mine, to have a life. So we'll keep that one on a low roar. Let's pivot into the NBA. I was going to talk about the Clippers and their disaster, but I'm going to talk about a more important issue first, and that's fan interaction. Now, seeing fans back in the building is fantastic. Again, I don't listen to sound, but seeing them there, it's great. Seeing Spike Lee, Tracy Morgan at the Knick game, the fans, being there, enjoying it. Of course, that's regular life. That means we're getting closer to normality, and that's something we all can be excited about. Obviously, in Canada, we're not as close as the States, but most of the states in the United States are opening up, and fans are back in buildings, and that's a great thing. Whether they're all vaccinated or not, at this point, it's almost a year and a half of this shit. I don't care. I'll let nurses, doctors, if they don't think it's happening, CDC, whatever it is, it's happening. So I'm going with it. I think it's a good thing. But with fans come alcohol, and there's just fans that are idiots. And I think you got to look at this last night. So for context, last night, Washington playing Philadelphia, Washington Wizards playing the Philadelphia 76ers. 76ers are crushing the Wizards. The game's over. Russell Westbrook tweaks his ankle. He's going back to the locker room. As he's walking back to the locker room, a fan dumped a whole bucket of popcorn over his head. Westbrook snaps, tries to get at the fan, security blocking him, not letting him go up and get to him, and the fan was kicked out of the building. Now, I wish this was 30 years ago, where you could have seen, the Malice at the Palace, where you see guys go and fight that fan and kick his ass, or Mike Milbury, hit a guy with a shoe, Ty Domi yanked the guy into the penalty box. Now, I wish it was like that, because this guy is a loser. This Philly fan, loser, because yeah, you can say, Russell Westbrook, you suck. You can say F you if you want. We heard the Knicks fans say that to Trae Young. That's fine. That's gamesmanship. But disrespecting a person like that, disrespecting a professional athlete who you paid tickets to go see, you don't have the right and merit to do that. You don't have the right to do that to any person. And Russell Westbrook was completely right in the way he said after the game, this fan should be publicized. We should know what he looks like, and he should be banned. And I agree. He should be banned for a long period of time, maybe for life. And also, he should have his face put up so that the players know who it is, not just, oh, some player was banned, feel good about it. No, tell us who it was. That's what I want to. Who was this guy? Obviously, it's going to be a nobody, but have his face put up so that you can show this is not tolerated. It was just, a fan's banned. Well, who the hell was it? Show a face to it and just make it clear that this is not going to be tolerated in the NBA. And again, I still wish Russell Westbrook could have went and got his hands on him and just kicked his ass. But I hate that it even had to come to that a fan thought that was okay. And again, there's idiots in every walk of life, but have some respect. The guys, you don't go to, I always think of the Seinfeld episode where Jerry's doing stand-up, and the woman comes with Kramer and starts heckling him. You know, boo, hiss, and she goes, so funny. If you remember I think her name was Peggy. And what does Jerry do? He goes to her office at Penn and Publishing and starts heckling her. And you can't do that to this fan because you don't know Rick, does whatever. You don't know who he is, but at least tell us who he is, because the players have a right to know. If you're going to come invade my workspace, at least I know who you are, and the world knows that you're a scumbag. I think that's more than fair, because they shouldn't have to put up with this bullshit, and at least do that. So that was just unfortunate. It's disrespectful. And then Bradley Beal, after the game, said he had heard some racial slurs, including the N-word, and his family was sitting close to this person, and it's never tolerated. That word should never be used in today's culture. It's an evil, disgusting word, and it's so derogatory. There's no line where you can say, well, I didn't mean it that way. No, but that word, you meant it that way. And you can't walk that one back. So it just, fans are back in buildings. I wish we could do it. I think you should be excited, but don't be an idiot. Have some decorum. Enjoy the product, because if you remember a year ago when you're stuck and your ass was at home in your studio apartment, then maybe you wouldn't be dunking a whole thing of popcorn on somebody. But this is not just an American issue. In Canada, Ethan Bear struggled in games 3 and 4 of the series against the Winnipeg Jets. He played terrible. I think at times it looked like Ethan Bear was playing for the Winnipeg Jets because he was giving them the puck that often. Now, we've seen in the past where player struggles and fans want to get on him. I'm fine with saying, he sucked tonight, or, you were garbage. That's part of it. But attacking somebody, threatening a person's life, we saw that with Max Comtois in the World Juniors. Jake Gardiner had it terrible in Toronto. Could you hate Jake Gardiner's play? Sure. He made a lot of mistakes. He was not a perfect player. But to say, I'm going to go kill you because you didn't play well tonight, that happened. Like, this was on Twitter, he had serious people saying, I'm going to come to your house and kill you, to Jake Gardiner. That's not funny. Again, there's no walking that, but that's a threat to somebody's life. Whether you had no intention, you're just a keyboard warrior or not, that's telling somebody, I'm going to go kill you. That's threatening his life. And it happened again, because Ethan Bear, again, struggles. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, people are writing to him saying, number one, racial slurs for him being Indigenous, and then people threatening his life and his families. Like, what the fuck? Okay, he played bad. When you go to work, when I go to work every day, I'm not perfect, but I don't have people tell me I'm going to go slit your throat because you dropped something. He had a bad couple games. It was his first postseason. Like, I love sports more than almost anything in the world. But it's not, you don't show that you love your team more because you get on a player that he sucked. You don't get on saying, oh, Jake Gardiner, I'm going to go kill you. So I'm the biggest Leaf fan there is. Puff my chest out. No, it shows that you're a little man, little woman, whoever's saying this. You're cowardly. Because if you were face to face with Jake Gardiner, there's a 0.0% chance that you'd say this. Because you'd look and then, your balls are gone. Because you probably didn't have any to begin with. But it just, this stuff, it's so stupid. Like, it shouldn't happen. He's a professional athlete. He had a bad day at the office. Just like everybody has a bad day at the office where they weren't as productive, or they just, everything they did screwed up. That was Ethan Bear. That was Jake Gardiner. But could you bench him? Yeah, the Oilers did. He didn't play the entire overtime. He did not play. There's 3 of them in game 4. Did not play. which is fine with me because he sucked. But the coach handled it. And then I just think this has to stop, especially this Twitter where you don't even have to have a name. You can just write something really derogatory to somebody and it's scot-free. I don't know. But you should have to, on Twitter, it should not just be an egg or an account 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You should have to say your name so that people are aware of who you are, where you're from, what you're about, so that it's not just so that the police can investigate it. Because if you write, I'm going to come to your house and kill you, guess what? You should be arrested because that's attempted murder. It's just some sort. The storylines should never happen, and unfortunately they do. And I just said I had to point them out today because this behavior and the culture that we live in, that you have a platform on social media, but you can go use it to tell people that you're going to go kill them or they should kill themselves, or like that's disgusting, and it should never ever be tolerated. Now back to the play on the court. Coming into the playoffs, the odds makers had the Lakers as the favorite to repeat as champions. The Brooklyn Nets were, I think, had the same odds. Then right below them, we have the Los Angeles Clippers, and they've been a polarizing team for a while because Kawhi Leonard left the Toronto Raptors. He joined Los Angeles Clippers, and what did he do? He got the Clippers to trade, really mortgage their future, to acquire Paul George from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And since then, they had a solid regular season last year. They get to the playoffs. They lose to Denver in the bubble. They're up 3-1. Denver rallies back, and it was a choke job. And we heard that the Clippers hated the bubble. Paul George said it really affected his mental health. And okay, I can accept whatever. I don't think it's 100% an excuse. I'm not going to buy it 100%, but nevertheless, okay, it's your mental health. This year, they're out of the bubble. They're traveling. They're living at home. They're getting vaccinated. So life's close to normal. Starting to see fans back in buildings. So life is getting close to normal. And so we get to the playoffs, and they're the 3 seed playing the 4 seed playing the 5th seeded Mavericks. You have home court, heavy favorite, and you lose the first 2 games of the series, both at home. A nightmare start for the Clippers, and this might be over. They're heading back to Dallas, game 3 Friday night, and you're down 0-2. And Luka Doncic, 22-year-old phenom, has averaged 40 points through the first 2 games of the series, close to a triple-double. And the big thing for the Clippers is, they're a great defensive team, air quotes. But the Mavericks are shooting over 50% from 3 for the series as a team. You're going to lose every game if you're allowing your opponent. And Doncic is getting double team. He's getting guys open threes. Tim Hardaway Jr. averaging 20 points per game so far. The guy doesn't shoot twos. He only shoots threes. Dorian Finney-Smith, Max Kleber, Porzingis hasn't even been fantastic. He's averaging 20 points, but has been good enough to get them over the hump. And it's got to be frustrating for the Clippers. They fired Doc Rivers. They kept Tyronn Lue, but this team is very close to the same. They got rid of Lou Williams, who was a problem for this team, to get Rajon Rondo, but they lack something. They lack team will and effort to win. And obviously Friday night's a must win. You get on 3-0, especially in the NBA. It's never been done. No team's come back from a 3-0 deficit in the history of the league. It's not the first team to do it. Is not going to be the Los Angeles Clippers. But if you're these Mavericks, and I think the Mavericks were a little bit pissed off because the Clippers had the ability to finish with the 3 seed. That would mean that they'd play that means they would play the Lakers in the second round if they got through Phoenix. I don't think they wanted to play the Lakers. I think they're afraid they only wanted to play them in the conference final, so they avoided them in the bracket. So they tanked the past couple of games, the last 3-4 games. They didn't dress any of their starters. Well, I think the Mavericks took that personally. and they said, well, you know what? You wanted to play us? Okay. Well, we're going to make you pay for it then. And you get hard. These guys, this team was 18th in the NBA in the regular season in three-point shooting, 15th in free throw, in field goal percentage. That's mid-pack. But yet they've torched them so far. Now, is this series over? I've heard from different analysts, this series, it's not over. The Clippers can still very much win this series. You're down 0-2, but could you win both in Dallas? Yeah, I think they can. Obviously, you're gonna have fans in Dallas, but that's more pressure on Doncic and co. You're at home. You're up 2-0. You're expected to win the series now. You've switched home court. Can you close the deal? So that's obviously going to be pressure on this team. But I think the Mavericks are definitely in the driver's seat. But after this year, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, they both have opt-outs to their contract. They could both opt out and leave the Clippers after 2 failed seasons. Now, do I think that'll happen? No, because then Kawhi Leonard he's from San Diego. He loves living in LA. So he'll likely re-up. But who knows? The guy says nothing. He gives you nothing. And he could leave and go elsewhere looking for another title, saying, I was wrong to get Paul George. I'm going to go join another team and see if we can win a title here. Who knows? But as when it comes to this season, Friday night, it's about Kawhi Leonard. It's about Paul George. Can your stars win you a game? Doncic has been a star through 2 games. He's assisted the ball. He's scored the ball. He's done everything. Kawhi Leonard had 41 in game 2. He had 30 in the first half, but that means he only had 11 in the second half. You need to score more than 11 points in the second half. Paul George, show up. Marcus Morris Sr., be the guy you were in the regular season, and you'll likely win, because you got to think Dallas is going to revert back. 18th in three-point percentage, 15th in field goal, 17th in free throw percentage. You got to think they'll revert back to the norm sooner rather than later. So force them. Don't give them wide open threes. Tim Hardaway is shooting wide open. The guy's a great three-point shooter. Play better defense. Be the defensive stoppers that people label you that you are. And we haven't seen it yet. But we'll see if they can turn it around in game 3 in the biggest must-win in Clippers history. Also, Tuesday night, we saw the Lakers. They beat the Phoenix Suns 109-102. Really a closer game than I thought it would be. The Suns win game 1 after great games from Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. But the big problem for the Suns is Chris Paul. He's hurt. He only played 23 minutes in game 2. He's got a really bad shoulder. They had to pull him from the game because he was just so ineffective. He can't shoot. His passing ability is hindered. And I doubt we see him on the court tonight. Game 3 tonight from LA. And with his injury, I think the series is over. I think the Lakers will win 3 straight. I think they'll win this series, and they'll get more and more confident. We saw Anthony Davis turn around after a game. He had 34 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. That's the Anthony Davis that we know, an aggressive guy. LeBron, he had an okay game 2. He's just been okay in this series, but they needed to see Anthony Davis show up and be a force. Caruso's been solid for this team. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope continuing to struggle to shoot, but to his credit, he's not afraid to shoot, and he's not going to stop. So he's been a really good factor in this series. But Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, they're young. Cam Johnson, Artis Payne, they're good players, but Chris Paul's the leader. He turned around Oklahoma City last year. He turned around Phoenix this year. Wherever he goes, the team gets better. And he's the floor general. He keeps everything where it needs to be. And I think the Suns are going to miss that in a huge way tonight, where he's not available. He's not going to, if he is available, he's hindered. He's not the same player. So we'll see what comes of it. But I don't think Chris Paul is going to be the effective player that we are used to. And obviously that's going to hurt the Suns in a big way, because they need him to be a force. They need him to be getting 10 plus assists a game, scoring the basketball, and I don't know if we're going to see that in tonight and for the rest of the series, for that matter. So I think Lakers likely win 3 in a row. They'll advance to the second round in 5 games. That's my early takeaway from this series. But we have seen some really good basketball. The Knicks Hawks series, the Knicks fought back last night to even it up. Portland and Denver go game 3 tonight. I think that's going to be a long series. 76ers, they look like they're going to crush the Wizards. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a sweep there. Westbrook and Beal are both banged up, and just Sixers are better. Bucks Heat game 3 tonight. Bucks winning by 30 plus in game 2. They look like a different team. Can they keep that going? Heat, again, must win tonight, but Jimmy Butler, only 27 points in the first 2 games combined. He's got to be better. And, Hero, Duncan Robinson, the guys that really made a name for themselves in the bubble last year, haven't shown up yet. So if the Heat are going to get back in it, they need those guys to be a factor. And they have been to this point, but we'll see it on display tonight. If the Heat can make it a series against the Bucks, or it's just going to be a quick drubbing by the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. So a lot of action coming in the NBA. And we're going to tie a bow in this podcast today by talking about a rivalry in a sport that really has no rivalries. And that's golf. And the rivalries between Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau. And I love this. I don't know if you've seen this on the Golf Channel. It's been on TSN now, but Brooks Koepka was doing an interview Saturday at the PGA. And, he's talking to Tom Lewis at the Golf Channel, and they're doing a live to air. So what that means is, you can, it's going to go to air, but it's just being recorded. But so they're doing the hit, and then Brooks talking about the day, the wind, and then in comes behind him is DeChambeau. And DeChambeau wears these metal cleats, so when he walks, it's really loud. So we see Brooks, and he's talking about the wind and his putting, and then he stops. And he stops and just goes, and he goes, fuck it. No, I forgot where I was, for fuck's sake. Yeah, we gotta start this fucking thing again. And it's so clear that he's peeved because he looked behind his shoulder and he sees that it's Bryson. And he hates him. And then it was announced yesterday that, we've seen the match where we saw Tiger and Peyton Manning play Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. That was a lot of fun. Charles Barkley was in one. So we're going to see another match. It's going to be Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady against Aaron Rodgers and Bryson DeChambeau. And Brooks Koepka tweeted out at Aaron Rodgers, sorry I couldn't make it, bro. And then Bryson tweeted at Brooks saying, I'm sorry that I live in your head rent free, meaning that, he's always on his mind, taking up space. And the hatred, I think, Brooks Koepka's clearly the jock. He wears the boy small, he's got the guns, but then you got the nerd in Bryson DeChambeau who likes to look at all the different science and where you should hit the ball and, metrics and all this. And Bryson's also jacked, so he's kind of taken up for the most jacked guy on tour. And what this tells me about this rivalry, just Koepka's general demeanor towards him, is in less than a month at the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines, these two have to be in a group together. They have to be in a group together. I don't care what the threesome is, Thursday, Friday, but they need to be in there together. And just to see how they interact with one another. I need it. The U.S. Open needs to put them together. And I'd love to see like them with Patrick Reed or Bryson and Brooks with, there's another guy that kind of stinks it up. I mean, Patrick Reed's the easiest one because he's a cheater. So that would be interesting to see if they chirp him, if they see him kind of drop a ball or fluff it in the rough, if they call him on it. But just another antagonistic type guy would make for great TV. And I mentioned golf's in a good place, and it is because they got a lot of really good guys, and they have some good guys on the mic. The play's really good, but they don't have rivalries. Everybody's so buttoned up and everybody's so nice, and sports is so much more compelling when people that are playing against each other hate one another. Detroit Red Wings, Colorado Avalanche hated each other. Lakers and Celtics hated each other with Magic and Bird. I don't like to see Isaiah Thomas, Magic Johnson give each other a kiss on the cheek before the start of the game. That's no good to me. That's garbage. I don't want that. I want hatred. I want Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers. I want that. I want that type of vitriol. I want that hatred. And for golf to have that, you need to buy into it. In the US Open, put them in a group because the players don't get any say in who they're paired with. So put Bryson with Brooks, and you know it's going to piss him off. And that's just great TV. That is what we all want. So, oh, it would be great. It would be so great if this happens. But that's all I can ask for with the US Open. Get these two together, tee them Thursday morning. Get one of the first groups in the morning. You just see them together early morning, just strutting around. Bryson looking at his yardage book while Brooks is just standing there like rubbing his forehead like, let's go. And they're obviously not going to fight, but just some hatred in the world of golf is good. Phil and Tiger, it was never there because Tiger was so much better than Phil. It was never right because it wasn't close. These two, Bryson's won a major. He's won two tournaments this year, and he's taken the golf world by storm, with his, bulking up and doing things differently. So he's an antagonistic guy just by himself. So please, can we get this? I think it would be great to see these two hash it out, but we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I hope we get to see them in a group, in a pairing sooner rather than later. But, the U.S. Open, it's 15th to the 18th of June, so less than a month away. We'll see another major, and we got the Charles Schwab Challenge this weekend. Mark Howe is in the field. We got some decent players in the field, but just a couple weeks to U.S. Open, so we'll gear up for that as we get closer to it here on To The Point. But Game 5, Toronto, Montreal. We got a Game 6, Carolina, Nashville. 3 NBA games tonight. Blue Jays have a doubleheader with Alek Manoah making his MLB debut. Dodgers, Giants beginning a 4-game set after the Dodgers sweep them last weekend. So we'll see how they react. Padres finishing up their series with the Milwaukee Brewers this afternoon. So a lot happening in the world of sports. Everybody will be back tomorrow. If the second round does end, we're going to be teeing up the next round of the playoffs this weekend when we know the game. So stay tuned for that. A lot more coming here on To The Point, doing some more NFL division updates as well along the way. So lots coming your way, and hopefully some interesting interviews in the next month or so as well. So everybody take care, stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.